I helped a stranger pay for her groceries once. Then she came back every week demanding I pay again because it is my obligation for being a rich witch. It started 3 weeks ago on a Tuesday evening. I was picking up a few things after work when I noticed a woman at the register ahead of me having trouble. Her card kept declining and she was getting flustered. She had a full cart and 2 kids hanging on her arms. The cashier looked exhausted. The line behind me was growing. I didn't think about it. I just stepped forward and told the cashier to put it on my card. The woman turned around and thanked me with tears in her eyes. She said she had just started a new job and her first paycheck hadn't come through yet. She promised to pay it forward someday. The total was $80. I told her not to worry about it. She hugged me in front of everyone and left with her kids. I felt good about it. That was my mistake. The next Tuesday, I was back at the same store around the same time. I was checking the produce section when I heard someone call my name. I turned around and there she was. Same woman, same 2 kids, brand new cart full of groceries. She was smiling like we were old friends. "There you are," she said. "I was hoping I would catch you." I asked if everything was okay. She laughed and gestured at her cart. "Just doing our weekly shopping. The kids wanted those little yogurt cups again." She looked at me expectantly. I didn't understand at first. Then it clicked. She expected me to pay. Again. I told her I was glad she got back on her feet, but I wasn't going to cover her groceries every week. Her smile disappeared instantly. "What do you mean?" she asked. I told her the first time was a one-time thing because she seemed like she needed help. She crossed her arms. "I still need help. My job doesn't pay much. You obviously have money." I looked at her cart. It was full of name-brand items and snacks that cost more than my entire basket. I told her I couldn't help her this time. She grabbed my arm. "You don't understand. I told everyone about you. My whole family knows about the nice lady who pays for groceries. My kids have been talking about it all week." I pulled my arm away and told her that wasn't my problem. She followed me through 3 aisles telling me I was being selfish. Her kids stared at me like I was a monster. She said I was rich and she could tell by my clothes. She said people like me had an obligation to help people like her. She said her kids would go hungry because of me. I kept walking and didn't respond. The 3rd Tuesday, she was waiting by the entrance. She spotted me the second I walked through the doors. This time she had her phone out. She pointed it at my face and started talking loudly. "Everyone look at this woman," she announced. 3 weeks ago, she paid for my groceries and made me think she was a good person. Now she refuses to help me. She's rich and she's selfish and she wants my children to starve. Other shoppers stopped to watch. I tried to walk past her, but she blocked my path. I asked her to move. She got louder. "This is what happens when you trust people," she shouted at her phone. "They pretend to be generous and then they abandon you when you need them most." Her kids were crying now. She kept the camera on my face. "Say something," she demanded. "Tell everyone why you hate poor people." I stayed calm and asked her one more time to let me pass. She laughed and said she wasn't going anywhere until I paid for her groceries and apologized on camera. I told her that wasn't going to happen. She started screaming that I was a horrible person. She called me every name she could think of. She said she was going to make sure everyone in this town knew what kind of woman I was. The store manager finally came over. He was a young guy named Benji who looked terrified. He asked what was happening. The woman pointed at me and said I was harassing her. She said I had been following her around the store threatening her. I watched Benji's face carefully. He knew exactly who I was. I asked Benji to call corporate. The woman laughed. "Go ahead and call them," she said. "I'm the victim here. They'll see my video. They'll see how this rich witch treated me." Benji made the call. He handed me the phone. I told the person on the other end to pull up the store's internal cameras for the last 20 minutes and review the footage. The woman stopped filming. She asked why I was talking to corporate like I knew them. I handed the phone back to Benji. He listened for a moment, then nodded. He walked over to the woman and told her she was no longer welcome in this store. She exploded. "You can't ban me because this witch complained," she screamed. Benji stayed calm. He told her she wasn't being banned from this store. She was being banned from every location in the county. The woman's face went pale. She asked what he was talking about. I finally spoke up. I told the woman I was the regional director for the grocery chain, and that's why Benji had called corporate directly, and her face went from angry to white in about 2 seconds, as I explained that I oversaw 15 locations in this county, and corporate had already reviewed security footage from all 3 weeks documenting every single interaction, including her blocking me in aisles, following me around the store, and waiting by the entrance today with her phone out. She started backing up and grabbed her kids and pulled them close and said she didn't know and she was sorry, but I told her the ban stood and she could shop at any other grocery chain in town, just not ours. She started crying and saying she made a mistake and her family needed this store because it was closest to her house. But Benji moved between us and quietly repeated that she needed to leave, and she finally turned around and pushed her cart toward the exit with her kids following behind her, while I could hear her sobbing as she left. That evening my phone buzzed with a link from Benji, and my stomach dropped because it was her video posted to 3 different platforms with brutal editing that cut out everything showing her blocking or following me, starting instead with me walking away from her while she called after me, her kids looking sad, and then her crying while Benji escorted her out, with a caption saying I refused to help a struggling mother after promising to support her family. The comments were already in the hundreds, with people calling me heartless and evil, and saying rich women like me didn't understand real struggle, and someone had already figured out which store it was, and posted the address while others threatened to boycott. The next morning at work, my coworker Dominique pulled me aside and asked if I was the woman from the video going around, and I tried to explain what actually happened about the 3 weeks, and the woman demanding I pay every time and following me and blocking me in the store, but I could tell Dominique wasn't sure what to believe because the video just looked really bad, and it made me look like the villain. By Friday, the woman had created a whole social media campaign with a dedicated account posting every single day about how I had promised to help her family, and then abandoned them, saying I discriminated against poor families and used my position of power to ban her, and her followers followers were growing as people left negative reviews on every store in our chain and demanded I be fired. My boss called me in and said he believed me, but the negative attention was becoming a problem, and corporate was getting calls, and he asked me to lay low and let it blow over. That Saturday, I started researching the woman online, and found a local news article from 2 years ago about someone matching her description running a similar scheme, then found a blog post from a woman named Marguerite, who described being manipulated by someone who used her kids to guilt people into giving money with the exact same script about yogurt cups and the same aggressive behavior when refused. Marguerite called me after seeing the video and recommended an attorney named Nadine Strickland who specialized in harassment cases. I walked Nadine and her assistant Jules through everything, and they organized all the documentation including screenshots, store footage, and witness statements from Benji, and Nadine said we had a strong case for defamation, harassment, and possibly stalking. Then the woman showed up at my office lobby screaming about how I ruined her life while the receptionist looked terrified, and after security escorted her out, my boss said this was affecting the work environment and told me to handle it quickly. That evening, Marguerite sent me files showing an identical pattern from 2 years ago, where she had helped the woman once with groceries and endured the same escalating harassment campaign until she got a restraining order, but not before her business reputation suffered and she lost clients. Meanwhile, Jules discovered through public records that the woman owned her home outright worth over $300,000, drove a car only 2 years old, and had social media posts from 6 months ago showing expensive restaurant visits, designer purses, shopping hauls, and a kitchen remodel, proving the financial struggle story was completely fabricated. Then one Thursday evening in the parking lot, the woman followed me from my building, positioned herself between me and my car with her phone already recording, and demanded I apologize publicly and pay her $500 for emotional distress, blocking my path when I tried to walk around her and pounding on my window after I locked myself inside until police and security arrived. Officer Lawson Bradshaw reviewed all the documentation and told me I needed a restraining order because this was escalating and wouldn't stop on its own. Meanwhile, the woman's sister and 2 other family members started showing up at different store locations, filming employees and leaving bad reviews mentioning my name, creating the appearance of widespread outrage with incident reports piling up from 7 different stores. Nadine and I filed for a restraining order, and the judge granted a temporary order immediately after reviewing the parking lot incident, the pattern of harassment across multiple locations, and the documentation showing escalation over weeks. 2 days after being served, the woman created anonymous accounts posting about a rich corporate woman who destroyed a struggling mother with enough details that followers knew exactly who she meant. And someone posted my apartment complex address while others posted stores where I usually shopped. Marguerite then forwarded me 3 emails from other previous victims who had contacted her after seeing news coverage, each with identical stories of helping the woman once and facing harassment campaigns when they refused to keep giving. At the full hearing 2 weeks later, we presented security footage, witness statements from 5 store employees, documentation from 5 previous victims, evidence of her actual financial situation, screenshots of every post and threat, and police reports. And when the judge asked the woman directly why she had lied about her financial situation, she started crying and said she just needed help. But the judge cut her off and said the evidence showed calculated manipulation of generous people over years, and this wasn't about poverty, but about targeting kindness and turning it into harassment. The judge granted a permanent restraining order, ordered her to pay my legal fees, remove all online content about me within 48 hours, and complete anger management classes with criminal charges if she violated the order. A journalist named Shreya Sasaki, who had noticed editing inconsistencies in the videos, helped us draft a carefully worded statement presenting the facts, and slowly the narrative shifted as colleagues who had been avoiding me came to apologize, and negative reviews started getting removed. 3 months later, things went back to normal, and corporate implemented new training covering manipulation tactics and harassment recognition that helped employees intervene early in 2 other situations involving scammers targeting shoppers. I'm different now in ways I didn't expect because I watch people more carefully and listen for inconsistencies in their stories, and part of me hates that. But I volunteer at the food bank monthly and support 3 families through a verified assistance program because the experience taught me that maintaining boundaries isn't selfish but necessary if you want to keep helping people long term. And real compassion requires wisdom alongside generosity because you can't help anyone if you're being drained by people who take advantage.